So how long has your dad been, I guess it was your grandfather first that started the cattle business here? Describe that. When did that kind of start?
My grandfather, Dave Bundy, bought this base property, this 160 acres. I don't know the exact year, but it was in 1954 perhaps. No, it would have been earlier than that. I know that they, 46, would have been more about 1950.
Okay.
1950. I think I know that they built that house in 1950, 1951. My grandfather built the house. And again, like I said, he did buy the grazing rights with that. I don't know the details of that purchase.
And the grazing rights for the surrounding land.
Sure.
And we don't know how many hundreds of acres or whatever, but it was substantial, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, it was never based on acreage. Now, you know, that is one. Well, let me go back up a little bit. All the ranchers in the area basically run in common in the same area, same land. In other words, there weren't boundaries. Okay, you can graze on this strip of land and the neighbor grazes on that strip of land, etc., etc. It was all open range, partly because there weren't fences, partly because, again, in the beginning, everybody had a little herd, or at least their oxen or their animals, their draft animals for their, you know, and that's where brand laws were so important, because you put your brand on your animal and that identifies that from the neighbors. Okay? And so that's why brands, I mean, nowadays, you know, if a rancher runs exclusively on his range, as long as his fences are good, it doesn't matter whether he has a brand or not too much. I mean, there are reasons for it. But on that case, you know, your animal runs out there in the hills with everybody else's animals, your brand becomes very important. When they gather up cattle and there's 10 different brands, well, we need to decide whose cattle these are, and that's the brands how you did that. And so brand laws come into play with this whole range situation. Now, as time went on, some ranches did break off and, you know, identify that they have this as their boundaries. And there were some conflicts between ranchers on where they grazed, especially when the ranches became bigger, and et cetera, et cetera.
I saw that on Bonanza.
Aha. Bonanza, it must be true.
Exactly.
But anyway, and this is one place that the BLM, one reason they did come into existence. Now, the Bureau of Land Management came into existence for a couple of reasons. And their first objective was to protect grazing rights, believe it or not. Protect grazing rights. Protect them from what? Well, protect them from some of these boundary problems. Okay? And so they went in and they started to, first of all, they recognized the rights, because that's what they're supposed to strengthen and protect. And so they went in to divide these boundaries, and so to end the conflicts between ranchers and so forth, and to try to, you know, kind of manage some of these situations. And for that service is what we paid them a grazing fee for. Okay, they were providing a service, and for that we paid them a fee. We never bought feed from them. They didn't own the land. We weren't paying a lease. We weren't buying a permit. We were simply paying them for a service.
Did they require you to sign any kind of document to do that?
Yes. Again, they did, and with anything, like a consulting company. You hire a consulting company, and you're going to sign a contract with them. They're supposed to do certain things, and you're supposed to do certain things. And you're going to give them consideration for those things.
What year? Approximately.
What year?
BLM.
I don't know the year that BLM first came into existence. I know that in 1976, I need to do a little more study. I know my dad knows these dates and a few things a little better than I do. But that's something I don't know.
Okay.
Well, did your
Let it up.
grandfather have to deal with a government agency like that or an agency like that?
Yes, at that point in 1950, I believe that BLM first came into existence in the late 40s, but I'm not exactly sure of the date. And so my grandfather did sign those contracts and did deal with them to some degree.
And by signing that agreement that the BLM wanted you to sign, did it ask you to give up your water rights, mineral rights, or grazing rights, or
It
anything?
in no way relinquished any rights. Again, their objective was to strengthen the rights. Okay, so, and that's actually one good thing that came about all this is in their own documentation, it reiterates that the rights do exist. It recognized that the rights do exist. They recognize the rights, and it was their object to strengthen them.
Now, do they have copies of those agreements that your grandfather signed and ultimately your father?
I would assume that some of those old contracts do exist in archives somewhere.
How about
We do have some of them, yes.
You've got some of them
I don't know
too.
if we've got
great.
complete,
Yeah. Okay.